There is a book sitting on a shelf at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, that has been there since 1969. It is 240 pages long. It was written between 1404 and 1438 on vellum, scraped animal skin, in an ink whose chemical composition has been analyzed and confirmed as consistent with the medieval period. Carbon dating of the vellum has confirmed its age. The book is real. It is genuinely old. It is genuinely from the 15th century, and nobody on earth can read it. Not because it is damaged. Not because the ink has faded. The text is clear, confident, and consistent across all 240 pages, written by a hand that was completely fluent in whatever it was writing. The script flows naturally. There are no corrections, no crossings out, no hesitations in the letter forms. The author knew exactly what they were writing. The script they were writing in exists nowhere else on Earth. The language it represents has never been identified. The plants illustrated in its pages match no known species. The astronomical diagrams contain star positions not catalogued by Western astronomy until centuries after the manuscript was written. The NSA attempted to decode it. They failed and declassified their failure in 1978. GCHQ tried. The world's most accomplished cryptographers have spent careers on it. Every major AI language model trained on its text has produced theories that other researchers have then disproven. The Voynich Manuscript is the most mysterious document in human history. An ancient tradition may be the only framework that makes sense of why it cannot be read. To understand why the Voynich Manuscript might be deliberately unreadable rather than accidentally mysterious, you need to understand the tradition it was almost certainly created within. The hermetic, where common substances were referred to by symbolic names. Illustrations that appeared to show one thing while describing another. Sequences of images that only made sense to someone who already knew the underlying system they were describing. The Voynich Manuscript fits this tradition precisely. It is a manuscript produced in the period and in the geographical area where hermetic and alchemical practice was most active. Its illustrations cover exactly the subject areas that hermetic tradition considered most sacred and most in need of protection. Plants with medicinal and alchemical properties, the movements of stars and planets, the properties of water and the human body, the cycles of time. If the Voynich Manuscript was produced within the hermetic tradition, it was not written to be decoded by anyone. It was written to be decoded by someone who already knew enough of the underlying system to recognize what they were looking at. The cipher is not the obstacle. The preparation is. The Voynich Manuscript is divided into sections that researchers have identified by their dominant illustration type, even though the text connecting them cannot be read. The botanical section is the largest, containing illustrations of approximately 113 plants. None of these plants has been definitively identified as a known species. Some bear resemblances to real plants but with features that do not match any single species. Some appear to be composite illustrations combining features of multiple plants. Some look entirely invented. The roots of the illustrated plants are often shown with unusual emphasis and sometimes appear to contain small humanoid figures, a feature found in some medieval herbals where the mandrake root was depicted as human-shaped. The astronomical section contains circular diagrams showing stars, zodiac symbols, and in one memorable series, naked female figures holding stars on tethers or emerging from star formations. The zodiac illustrations are recognizable in their basic symbols but differ from standard medieval zodiac representations in ways that suggest either a different astrological tradition or a deliberate modification of the standard forms. The biological section contains the illustrations that have generated the most speculation. Figures, all female, bathing in pools of green or blue liquid connected by elaborate networks of pipes, tubes, and channels. Some pools contain multiple figures. Some figures appear to be emerging from the pipe systems or being absorbed into them. The purpose of these illustrations has generated theories ranging from the practical, a balneological manuscript describing medicinal bathing practices, to the alchemical, a description of the processes by which base matter is transformed, to the astronomical, a representation of the female figures of the zodiac moving through celestial waters. The manuscript also contains what appears to be a recipe or pharmaceutical section, and a stars section of dense text with small star symbols scattered through it. The final pages of the manuscript contain what may be continuous prose, denser text with fewer illustrations, suggesting perhaps a conclusion or summary section. Those pages have never been read. The history of attempts to decode the Voynich manuscript is almost as interesting as the manuscript itself, and it tells a story about the limits of human pattern recognition when confronted with genuine mystery. The manuscript takes its modern name from Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer who acquired it in 1912 from the Jesuit college at Frascati in Italy and immediately recognized it as something extraordinary. Voynich spent the rest of his life trying to find someone who could read it. He failed. The manuscript passed through several owners before arriving at Yale in 1969. In the intervening decades, it attracted the attention of some of the most accomplished code breakers of the 20th century. William Friedman, the American cryptologist who broke the Japanese purple cipher in World War II and was considered the greatest codebreaker of his era, worked on the Voynich manuscript for decades. He concluded privately that it might be written in an artificial philosophical language and that it might be permanently indecipherable. He never published his conclusions. The NSA's involvement, revealed in declassified documents from 1978, shows that the agency applied the full range of its cryptanalytic tools to the manuscript during the early Cold War period, apparently concerned that it might represent some form of encoded intelligence. They found nothing actionable and classified their failure until the Freedom of Information Act forced its release. Since the manuscript was digitized and made freely available online in 2004, the number of proposed solutions has exploded. Dozens of researchers have published claimed decipherments. Every single one has been contested, found to contain errors, or simply failed to produce consistent readable text when applied to more than a small sample of the manuscript. The manuscript has defeated every approach applied to it while giving just enough partial results to keep researchers convinced that a solution exists. Here is where the Voynich manuscript becomes genuinely philosophically interesting rather than just mysteriously frustrating. Every serious theory about the manuscript shares one characteristic: it almost works. Every proposed solution produces results that are partially convincing, that match some features of the manuscript, that generate readable passages in some sections, and then breaks down or produces inconsistencies when applied more broadly. The manuscript seems designed to reward partial understanding while withholding complete comprehension. The most statistically rigorous analysis of the Voynich script has confirmed that it is not random. It has word frequency distributions that match natural languages. It has internal structure. It follows rules. Something is being encoded. The question that has never been answered is what? The leading serious theories as of the most recent scholarship include a cipher applied to an existing European language, most likely Latin or a medieval vernacular, a constructed philosophical language of the kind that Renaissance thinkers like John Wilkins would later try to create, a glossolalia text produced by someone in a visionary or trance state that records the phonetic impression of experience rather than conventional meaning, and the proto-romance theory proposed by Gerard Cheshire, which identifies the manuscript as a women's health manual in a lost predecessor language of modern Romance languages. None of these theories has been proven. None has been disproven. The manuscript sits in its conservation case at Yale, 240 pages of confident fluent script in a language that should not exist, and declines to explain itself. Here is the honest position that the evidence supports, and that the ancient tradition this channel explores actually illuminates. The Voynich manuscript is almost certainly not a hoax. The statistical properties of its text are too consistent with natural language for random or meaningless generation. The vellum and ink are genuinely medieval. The astronomical knowledge encoded in some of its diagrams was not available to a forger working after the medieval period. Something real is being communicated. It is almost certainly not a simple substitution cipher of an existing language. If it were, the combined cryptanalytic power of the NSA, GCHQ, and every academic cryptographer who has worked on it would have found it by now. What remains is the possibility that the ancient hermetic tradition had it right, that there exists a form of knowledge encoding that is designed not to be cracked by analytical methods, but to be recognized by prepared minds. That the Voynich manuscript is not a puzzle with a solution, but a key that only functions if you already possess the lock it was made for. The hermetic tradition described exactly this. Sacred knowledge was encoded not to make it secret from everyone, but to make it accessible only to those who had done the preparatory work of understanding the underlying system. The encoding was a filter, not a barrier. If the Voynich manuscript is a hermetic document of this kind, then the question is not what cipher was used. The question is what underlying system of knowledge would make its contents immediately recognizable to a prepared reader. That question has not been seriously pursued by mainstream scholarship. It may be the only approach that has not yet failed. Tell me in the comments, do you think the Voynich Manuscript was deliberately encoded to hide sacred knowledge, or do you think it is something else entirely? Share this video with someone who thinks they know ancient history. Subscribe and come back next week because the next one is even harder to explain.